Jasmine. Mav. I managed to choke out. My voice trembled, feeling the entire world crash around me. The gravel on the cold floor sank into my skin. I couldn't believe Samantha could leave me in this state unapologetically. Jasmine, what's wrong? Are you okay? His panicked voice called out, slicing through the confusion that almost clouded my entire senses. In the background, I heard the screech of tires. He must have taken a sharp turn. No, I'm not. The words came out hoarse, my throat dry and aching. Where are you, Jasmine? Please stay with me. I'm on my way. I nodded, tears blurring my vision as if he could somehow see my response from here. My breath came in shallow gasps, and the ache in my abdomen only grew unbearable as if a saw had been driven through it. Time seemed to stretch endlessly, and I thought I couldn't bear it anymore until I caught the familiar scent of sandalwood, enveloping me in its warmth. My nerves immediately calmed down. The figure appeared from afar. His movements became more frantic as he closed the distance between us. My lips curled up in a knowing smile. He made it. When Maverick reached me, his eyes widened, filled with terror. What? His voice cracked as his gaze dropped down to my legs. I followed his eyes, my stomach sinking as I saw the crimson stains spreading across my white sundress. Blood. My blood. It trailed down my legs in dark rivulets, staining the ground beneath me. What the heck? A sharp, piercing pain shot through my spine, and I groaned, my body trembling from the struggle to stay in my consciousness. Jasmine! Maverick's voice broke through the fog around me again. He knelt beside me, gently cradling me in his arms. His touch was steady and reassuring, and his presence alone eased the pain. Are you okay? He asked, stroking my hair, and surprisingly, I was. His touch healed me, and the pain was no longer there. Only the aftermath of the incident and a slight headache. He scooped me up in his arms effortlessly, his strong arms shielding me from the world, and carried me to his car. I could feel the tension, the way his muscles tightened with every step he took. Once inside, he turned to me. His face was tight with worry. Jasmine, what happened? Who did this to you? His voice was raw, trembling with barely contained anger. His eyes were stormy as he took me in once again, checking for any injuries. I slipped, I whispered with a shaky voice. I couldn't let him know, knowing he wouldn't take this lightly. Not yet. I'm fine. The hell you are, he snapped, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. You're drenched in blood, Jasmine. How can you say you're fine? He slammed his hand against the dashboard. I failed you. I couldn't protect you. His words hit me hard, but my mind was elsewhere, consumed by memories of Samantha. Her betrayal replayed in my head. The cold, menacing look in her eyes as she turned on me. It was like staring into the face of a stranger, someone I no longer recognized. How could she do this to me? After everything I had sacrificed for us, after all the times I had held her hand through her darkest moments and fought so hard for us? Why? Why had she turned her back on me? Is it for power, affluence? No matter how much I tried to think about it, nothing justified her actions. Jasmine! Maverick's voice snapped me back to the present. His tone was softer now, filled with concern. We're going to the hospital. You're bleeding. No. My reaction was instinctive and defensive, and it caught both of us off guard. I took a deep breath, my voice gentler this time. Please, Mav, just take me home. That's all I need. His jaw tightened, and for a moment I thought he might give in. But then he shook his head, his resolve hardening even more. No, Jasmine, you're going to the hospital, and that's final. As he drove, my thoughts spiraled. The cramps, the dizziness, the blood. Could it mean no? It couldn't be. I had missed my cycle, but I'd brushed it off. I was certain it wasn't possible. I had an IUD in place. Logan and I had decided on family planning. It couldn't be. Still, the anxiety chomped at me slowly. What if? When we pulled up to the PAC hospital, my heart raced. Every instinct in me screamed to turn back. My wolf stirred uneasily, her restlessness mirroring my own. I couldn't go in there. Not with Maverick. Not with the rumors that would surely follow. Mav, please, I whispered, turning to him. Let's not go in. What if people see us together? They'll talk. Let them talk, he said firmly, his eyes never leaving mine. I don't care about them, Jasmine. I care about you only, and you're not okay. His words tugged a string, but I couldn't shake off my fears. Please, Mav, I pleaded. Get me a private doctor instead. I can't risk it. He hesitated for a moment, his jaw clenching as he studied my face. Finally, with a heavy sigh, he agreed. "Fine. Just this once," he said, pulling out his phone. Maverick's friend agreed to meet us at his home, and soon we were there. The doctor greeted us warmly but couldn't hide the curiosity in his eyes as he glanced between Maverick and me. After explaining my symptoms, he asked when I'd last had my cycle. I hesitated a bit, my gaze turning to Maverick, who was also uneasy before mumbling, "A couple of months ago." The doctor's face was unreadable as he handed me a sample tube. "Let's check your hormone levels," he said, motioning me toward the restroom. Time seemed to crawl slowly. Every second felt like an eternity as I sat beside Maverick, his hand holding mine, in an attempt to calm me down, but my nerves refused to settle. Finally, the doctor returned with an unreadable expression on his face. My heart sank as he approached. "Congratulations, Jasmine," he said softly. "You're pregnant." "Pregnant?" Maverick and I repeated at the same time. "Alpha Maverick." After realizing Jasmine wasn't backing down on her argument, I watched her take the cab, frustration tightening my chest. I drove off to the meeting, my mind swirling with unresolved tension. My jaw ticked, and my hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as Logan's request echoed in my mind. The issue had been closed and settled, yet here they were, dragging it back to the surface. I couldn't understand their motive for coming here. I gritted my teeth in frustration. Why were they trying to provoke me when I'd been nothing but lenient with them? Why was Isabella making it seem like I had no regard for them anymore, as though I'd completely disregarded my responsibilities? What she was asking for, however, was nearly impossible. I shook my head, suppressing any creeping doubts. I had made my decision. If Logan wasn't ready to prove himself worthy and fight for his position like everyone else, I wouldn't force it. Soon I arrived at the clinic and was met by the pack doctor. "Alpha Maverick," he greeted me with a respectful bow, and I nodded, diving right into the topic at hand. "What is the update on the victim?" It had come to my attention that one of our pack members had contracted a new strain of the lichen virus after traveling to another city. The infected individual had been quarantined immediately. "We are doing everything we can to develop methods to contain the virus and prevent its spread," the doctor explained as I pressed him for updates. The news, if leaked, could cause widespread panic and disrupt the pack's harmony. We had to keep it confidential while expediting research to combat the virus and slow its progression. The doctor explained there was a possibility the virus could spread further, especially if the infected individual had come into contact with any werewolf DNA. After reviewing the situation, I assured him our researchers and pharmacologists were doing their best. I instructed him to closely monitor the patient's vitals and ensure every effort was made to stabilize them. The meeting concluded, but unease lingered as I walked back to my car. I debated stopping by Grand Prime before Jasmine returned. The idea of her touring the house without me didn't sit right. Despite her reassuring me that she would be fine, I couldn't bring myself to trust the woman completely. But I couldn't do anything either. Meddling would only upset Jasmine. As I pulled onto the road, my phone rang. The sight of Jasmine's name flashing on the screen filled me with a wave of worry. I answered quickly. "Jasmine?" Her voice came through in gasps. Mav." My entire world tipped on its axis. Hearing her voice like that set off every alarm in me. I demanded to know what was wrong, changing my route instantly. Through the phone, I urged her to stay awake, my heart pounding in fear. When I arrived at the house, my wolf howled in anguish at the sight before us. Jasmine was sprawled on the floor, writhing in pain. For the first time in years, I felt pure, unfiltered fear. Blood trickled down her legs, the crimson staining the floor in a hauntingly vivid contrast. I'd only ever seen something like this in movies. I dropped to my knees, cradling her head on my thighs. Her trembling subsided slightly under my touch, but the sight of her like this tore me apart. Without wasting a second, I carried her to the car, my mind racing. Who would dare harm my mate? Where was the woman she was supposed to meet? Was she behind this? Rage simmered under my skin, threatening to boil over. Whoever was responsible for this would learn the true meaning of hell. Jasmine kept insisting she was fine, but I wasn't buying it. "Who the hell did this to you?" I demanded. She claimed she had slipped. Slipped? I couldn't believe her. Something wasn't adding up. How could a mere slip lead to this? If she had slipped, the bleeding would have been from her head or arms, not this. As I drove to the hospital, my thoughts spiraled. Could she be pregnant? My muscles tensed at the realization. But if she was it Logan's? The very thought twisted my heart. Upon arrival, Jasmine argued, going in a little with uneasiness in her voice. What if people saw us and tossed and talked? I sighed heavily, running a hand through my hair in frustration. Did she honestly think I gave a damn about what people would say? How could I when she was sitting here pale and bleeding? My jaw tightened as I tried to resist the pull she always seemed to have over me. Please, Mav, she whispered again, her eyes holding mine. Damn it, my resolve crumbled under the weight of her plea. Clenching my jaw, I glanced away, trying to gather myself. With a deep breath, I nodded and reached for my phone to call Dr. James, an old friend of mine. After a moment of hesitation, I made the call. It didn't matter how much this situation unsettled me. I'd do whatever it took to make sure Jasmine was safe. He asked us to come over to his house, for him to have a better assessment, and with that, I drove straight to his apartment. After exchanging our pleasantries, I watched her squirm uncomfortably under his gaze, her cheeks flushing slightly as she explained her symptoms. He asked, "When was your last cycle?" I noticed her hesitate. Her eyes flicked to me briefly before she mumbled, "A couple of months ago." The words hit me like a gust of wind, knocking the air out of my lungs. I kept my face neutral, but inside, questions roared like a storm. A couple of months? Could it mean? No. It couldn't be. Dr. James's expression remained professional as he handed Jasmine a tube. "Let's check your hormone levels," he said, gesturing toward the restroom. As she walked away, I sat there, frozen, my mind racing with possibilities. It wasn't until I felt her absence that I realized I had been gripping the chair so hard my knuckles had turned white. When she returned and sat beside me, I instinctively reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. My thumb brushed over her skin as I tried to steady her nerves, or maybe my own. But time dragged on, every second amplifying the tension in the room. Finally, James walked back in, his expression unreadable. My chest tightened as he approached. "Congratulations! Jasmine, you're pregnant," Dr. James announced, his expression tinged with concern. "Pregnant?" Jasmine and I exclaimed at the same time. Her hands instinctively moved to her stomach, cradling the life within her as tears welled in her eyes, but her relief was short-lived. "There's a problem," Dr. James said, sighing heavily. The color drained from Jasmine's face, and my chest tightened. "What problem?" I asked urgently, anxiety clawing at my insides. "The viability of the fetus has been compromised due to stress. For the pregnancy to have the best chance of survival, I strongly recommend complete bed rest. She must avoid anything that could raise her blood pressure or cause further strain. Vitamins and proper nutrition are also essential." His words echoed in my mind, but I felt utterly detached, as if my body and soul were no longer connected. "Jasmine." My body grew cold at Dr. James's words. "The fetus has been compromised due to stress, and you need complete bed rest," he said with a tone of finality that sent a shiver down my spine. I couldn't tell what to feel, fear, guilt, or disbelief. The realization that I carried a life within me, a life entirely dependent on my well-being, weighed heavily on me. He explained some things to Maverick, but his words blurred into the background. I couldn't concentrate on them. Even Maverick looked lost. What was going through his mind? Was he worried too? I need to keep a close eye on her. Her body is still in shock from the fall. I suggest you both stay the night here. "Please make yourselves comfortable," Dr. James said, and soon led us to a guest room. After we settled in and freshened up, Dr. James returned with pain relief medication and ointment for the scrapes on my legs. "Are you okay?" Maverick's voice was soft as he knelt in front of me, carefully applying the ointment as soon as Dr. James left. His touch was gentle, soothing, and uncharacteristically tender. My wolf calmed under his touch, as if she's reassured by his presence. I nodded, unable to find words. The care in his eyes sent a warmth spreading through me, making my heart flutter. He held my gaze, his hand lingering on my leg for a moment longer than necessary. The scent of him intoxicated me. A knock on the door pulled us back to the moment. "Come in," Maverick said, and Dr. James peeked his head into the room. Offering me a small smile before turning his gaze back to Maverick, he spoke, Alpha, I need to discuss something with you. Maverick hesitated, his gaze turning to me. I managed a reassuring smile. I'll be fine, I said softly. He stood, following Dr. James out of the room. Alone, I sank into the bed, exhaustion crashing over me. My body ached, and my mind was a whirlwind of complete mess. Eventually, sleep claimed me. I didn't hear Maverick return, but when I awoke, sunlight streamed through the curtains, indicating it was morning already. Dr. James assured me that it was safe to go home, but insisted on strict rest and minimal stress. We would come back for another scan in a few days. The drive back was coldly silent, so thick with tension a knife could hardly pass through. I fidgeted with my fingers, the weight of everything pressing heavily down on me. Maverick was the first to break the silence. "Your art pieces will be moved into your room tonight," he said matter-of-factly. I frowned. We hadn't addressed anything from the previous night, yet he was already making decisions about my life. I knew it went both ways, before even I avoided confrontation, but still. "Didn't you hear what Dr. James said? This contract won't work," I blurted out. The car screeched to a halt. Maverick turned to me, his expression intense. "What are you saying, Jasmine? Why do you think that?" I shrugged, shaking my head, unsure how to articulate the chaos in my mind. Was he not concerned about how this would play out? About the child? About us? The pregnancy was still so new, barely a few weeks along, yet it was worried. What if the baby was Logan's? How could Maverick accept a child that might not even be his? And if he did, how could he father his nephew? The questions circled endlessly, each more distressing than the last. I just can't wrap my head around it. I don't want anyone to know about the baby, especially Logan or even Isabella. They'd use it against me. I sighed, turning to him. No one should know of this. Maverick's jaw tightened. His hands gripped the steering wheel. Without looking at me, he nodded. When we arrived home, Maverick quickly stepped out, opening my door with care. His hand rested lightly on my waist as he helped me out of the car, his touch sending tingles through my body. I didn't protest. As we entered the house, a middle-aged woman approached us. She bowed slightly. "Welcome home," she said, her tone respectful. Taking my bag from Maverick, she headed upstairs without hesitation. What was going on? I thought he had dismissed all of his workers already. Confused, I turned to him. "Who is she?" "She'll be your nurse," he said, his tone light yet decisive. "She'll take care of you until you're well enough to move freely." Move freely? I inhaled deeply, trying to steady my emotions. "Maverick, I'm fine. I don't need a nurse. I'm pregnant, not disabled." He dismissed my protest with a wave of his hand, taking mine in his. His touch was warm and comforting. "Jasmine, I know how capable you are, but trust me on this. I promise to protect you, and I'm keeping that promise. Just relax and focus on resting, okay? Until you are stable." Arguing felt pointless. Maverick had made up his mind, and nothing I said would change it. While I appreciated his care, every gesture was a reminder of how precarious my situation was. He led me to my room before leaving to freshen up. I noticed my bag neatly placed on the console table. Picking it up, I carried it into the closet, pacing as my thoughts spiraled. How did this happen? I had been so careful. Birth control wasn't foolproof, I knew that, but why now? Just when I was beginning to rebuild my life, this pregnancy had upended everything. And whose child was it? The question gnawed at me. If it was Maverick's, could we move forward despite everything? If it was Logan's, I couldn't even finish the thought. What would happen with my work? Does that mean I would have to take a break? This revelation came at the wrong time, the time I was supposed to prove myself. And the nurse? Why would Maverick bring someone into my life without consulting me? The thought of someone hovering over me, watching my every move, made my skin crawl, but deep down, I knew Maverick's intentions were good. He cared for me in his own way, even if it was overwhelming at times. Yet his actions only served to highlight the helplessness I felt. Because no matter what Maverick does, this pregnancy was changing everything, and I wasn't sure I was ready for it. "Jasmine." Lost in thought, I was startled by a soft knock. "Come in," I called, and the door opened to reveal Maverick. My breath caught. He wore a fitted white t-shirt that showcased the defined lines of his biceps, and my gaze trailed lower, lingering for a moment too long on the way his pajama pants draped across his groin. I swallowed hard, forcing my thoughts elsewhere. He ran a hand through his damp, dark hair, looking and smelling incredible. "Are you all right?" he asked, walking towards me. "I came to check if you needed anything and to let you know I'll be working from home starting tomorrow so I can keep a closer eye on you." A frown creased my brow. What did he mean by that? Wasn't hiring a nurse enough? Why was he acting as if I was incapable of caring for myself? I wasn't a child. Just because I was pregnant didn't mean I couldn't lift a finger. Was this out of concern, or he just is up to something? I sighed, deciding to address the issue directly. I understand I need rest and should avoid strenuous activity, but hiring a live-in nurse, isn't that a bit overboard? I really don't need one. I can take care of myself. He clicked his tongue, gently taking my arms in his hands. "We've been over this, Jasmine. Dr. James strongly recommended having a nurse present at all times. We don't have a choice. You know the risks. Complications can arise at any moment." He spoke with a gentle firmness, trying to reason with me. I had a retort on the tip of my tongue, but I swallowed it back. "So that's it? I'm confined to my room just because I'm pregnant? This is ridiculous." I shook my head, sitting on the edge of the bed. Maverick offered a soft smile. "Just a moment," he said, quickly leaving the room. I sat there, wondering what he was up to. He returned moments later with a sheepish grin, wheeling in a wheelchair. "No way!" I exclaimed. "Standing. What's this for?" He chuckled, gesturing towards the chair. "That reminds me, we haven't had a proper tour of the house. Come on, let me show you around my mansion. You can get some fresh air without overexerting yourself." "Mav, how many times do I have to say it? I'm not disabled. I can walk. You don't have to go through this rigorous—" He cut me off, gently guiding me toward the wheelchair before I could finish protesting. Arguing with him was futile. As I sat down, he lowered his head, his warm breath fanning across my face as he whispered in my ear, "Relax, Jasmine, and enjoy the ride." And so he wheeled me around the house, showing me rooms I hadn't seen before. He showed me a pink room with a crib, explaining he'd planned it for a daughter, and then a blue one in case of a son. Then we stopped, and I gasped. The next room was triple the size of his own, but it was the view that stole my breath. It faced directly onto the Meteor Waterfall, a sacred place for the pack. From here, you could watch the river flow. His hands rested lightly on my back. And this is the room I plan to share with my Luna, raising our children. I was speechless. Alpha Maverick had truly thought of everything. It was all so perfect. "Now let's take a stroll in the gardens. I think you'll love it." I readily agreed. He took a different route downstairs, one with a ramp designed for wheelchair access. This entire structure was incredibly well planned. "This is so thoughtful," I said, marveling at his foresight. He shrugged. "Just me being me. I had this installed a few years ago. During a duel with a rival pack, I injured my spine and had to use a wheelchair for a couple of days before my wolf healed me. I figured it would be useful." He wheeled me into the garden, filled with the intoxicating scent of blooming flowers, my favorites among them. It was breathtaking. "How do you like it?" he asked. "I love it. It's so beautiful. It almost makes me want to cry," I said. He said playfully. "Don't even think about stressing your tear ducts." I laughed, sniffing, as he promised I was about to love it even more. He took me to a secluded area with a kitchenette. He explained his vision. A life filled with the laughter of his children playing in the garden while he grilled steaks. "Who knew the Alpha was a romantic?" I teased. He lowered his head until we were eye to eye, my wolf purring at his proximity. He placed a soft kiss on my cheek, whispering, "Now you know, and that's all that matters." My heart skipped a beat. He made me feel things I never thought I was ready for. The way I melted at his touch, the way my mood mirrored his, the way my body reacted to him. It all frightened me. "Fancy a game?" he asked, pulling me from my thoughts. "Huh? Sure," I stammered, noticing a gazebo in the corner of the garden. We sat down across from each other, a checkerboard between us. As we concentrated on our moves, Maverick leaned back with a smirk. "You know, back in college, I was a legend. I won the Ultimate Sportsman Award every year. I was basically the best at board games." I raised an eyebrow, chuckling. "Oh, really? So you were the king of kings?" "Exactly. I even had a trophy shaped like a giant checker piece. It's in my trophy room. I'll show you sometime. It was a masterpiece," he said dramatically. His voice softened, a hint of sadness in his smile. Isabella hated it, though. She said it was just a glorified paperweight. I nodded sympathetically as we continued the game. Maverick made a bold move, capturing 3 of my pieces at once. And just like that, I'm still the champion, he declared triumphantly. Okay, Mr. Ultimate Sportsman, but I'm not giving up yet. I laughed, planning my next move. After the game, he wheeled me back to the dining room. The aroma of various dishes filled the air, making my stomach rumble embarrassingly. He helped me out of the wheelchair and seated me at the table. Surprise! It's your favorite, mango steak. How did he know my favorite dish? Just how much did Maverick know about me? Cheer up, Jasmine, and stop worrying. It's not good for a pregnant woman to be stressed, he said with a smile. I thanked him as he sat beside me, but all of this only amplified my anxiety. Wasn't he bothered by the uncertainty surrounding the paternity of my child? Why was he being so sweet and attentive? Was this some kind of coping mechanism? I glanced at him as he ate, engrossed in his meal. Then my phone pinged. I picked it up quickly, my eyes widening as I choked, coughing. What is it? Maverick asked, concerned. I swallowed hard, staring at Professor Gabby's message. I had been invited to the final in-person interview. Maverick. My mind raced with questions as Dr. James spoke. One thing was clear. Logan must never find out about this, no matter what. As Dr. James led us into the guest room, he suggested that Jasmine stay the night. A few moments later, he returned with ointment and pills for her. I carefully applied the ointment to her wounds, asking if she was feeling okay. She nodded, but I could see something was off. My thoughts spiraled. What if the child she carried belonged to Logan? And now, with everything Jasmine had said about giving him another chance, was this the right time for Logan to return to the company? Or should I send him to manage the branch on the far side of the city instead? As I shifted to her scraped knees, I gently applied the cream. Jasmine winced slightly, the sting breaking her composure for a moment. Something about her fall didn't sit right with me. From the position I found her in, it wasn't a simple slip, it was too severe for that. I glanced into her eyes, searching for answers. She was as breathtaking as ever, her gaze piercing mine. A deep tug in my chest reminded me why I would protect her with everything I had. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. After granting permission to enter, Dr. James stepped in with a reassuring smile and asked for a moment to speak with me. Reluctantly, I agreed, though I didn't want to leave Jasmine alone, especially not now, when she was visibly shaken, not just from the fall, but also from her condition. Once outside, Dr. James sighed, his tone more serious than before. Alpha, the situation is more delicate than I initially let on. The fetus is already at significant risk, and if proper care isn't taken, the consequences could be severe. I didn't emphasize this earlier because the mother isn't in the right state of mind to process it fully. His words stole the breath from my lungs. I swallowed hard, running a hand through my hair. What can we do, James? How do we salvage this? He sighed again. She needs to avoid all stress, physical, mental, and emotional. Any triggers, long walks, or strain could be harmful. Stability and happiness are key. In her case, the issue is more psychological than physical. For the baby to thrive, Jasmine needs to be emotionally stable. I nodded, processing his advice. He continued, I've prescribed multivitamins to boost her energy, but I also recommend hiring a stay-in nurse to monitor her around the clock. If anything arises, immediate action will be crucial. I'll schedule regular checkups and notify you beforehand. Grateful for his guidance, I approved the idea of the stay-in nurse. Dr. James mentioned a nurse named Mrs. Martha, who was highly competent and agile in her work. After providing the necessary details, we bade each other good night. As I re-entered the room, I noticed Jasmine had fallen asleep. I tucked her in under the duvet, lingering for a moment as I watched her. The thought of her being the mother of my pups brought a wave of joy. I wanted nothing more than to raise a family with her as my mate. But if the child belonged to Logan, the thought alone was unbearable, knowing it could lead to a dispute. She stirred slightly, her face frowning and wincing even in her sleep. How had she fallen in the first place? Something didn't add up. I retrieved my phone and quickly dialed Beta Kaiden's number. He answered on the first ring. Greetings, Alpha, he said. I got straight to the point. Kaiden, I need you to go to Jasmine's house and retrieve the CCTV footage. She fell down the stairs, and I need to confirm something. Understood, Alpha. I'll handle it, he assured me before ending the call. I glanced back at Jasmine, still sound asleep. The rise and fall of her chest was steady, but her expression betrayed unease. My mind churned with unanswered questions. Whatever had happened tonight, I would get to the bottom of it. It was morning already, and Jasmine was still deep asleep. I didn't know if it was due to the medication she was given or coupled up with the stress. She needed some good news, something that could lift her spirits and give her a reason to smile again. The final interview for Professor Gabby's lab position had been hanging over her head for weeks, and the silence was eating away at her optimism. Even though she didn't speak much about it, I decided to take matters into my own hands, for now. After making sure Jasmine wouldn't stir, I stepped outside and dialed Professor Gabby. The phone rang twice before his voice came through, slightly weary but polite, probably wondering why I was calling him. "Professor Gabby," I said, "are you still at the lab? I was hoping to drop by and catch up." He hesitated for a moment, distracted by whatever mountain of work he was buried under, then agreed. "Sure, Alpha Maverick. Come on by. I'll be in my office." I arrived about 20 minutes later, finding him hunched over a desk cluttered with papers and his laptop screen glowing faintly. "Welcome, Alpha. It's been a while," he said as we exchanged brief pleasantries before I jumped straight to the point. I needed to be done and back before Jasmine woke up to an empty bed. "So, how's the lab holding up?" I asked, leaning casually against the doorframe. He let out a low chuckle, rubbing his temples in a circular motion. "Busy as ever. Too many applicants, too little time." My eyes caught the monitor behind him, displaying an outrageous amount, 50 applicants waiting to hear back from him. That's when I decided to press a little harder while trying to keep it as casual as possible. "What does it take to get in these days?" I asked with a grin, trying to sound lighthearted but deliberate enough to make my point. "I imagine it's like climbing Everest with the demand you've got." Gabby sighed. "It's the university protocols," he turned with a tight smile. "It's so much vetting, and we're already short-staffed, so it takes time before the applicants get a response." I nodded, clanking my teeth, before he continued. "I already have a workload, and I have to see to the needs of the applicants individually. Therefore, the screening has to be thorough and strict." "Well," I said, leaning forward slightly, "that's unfortunate. I've been thinking about recommending a friend of mine, Jasmine. She's very brilliant and hardworking. She's the one who suggested an approach of research on the lichen virus. But if the applicants are too many, maybe I should suggest she apply to Professor Emerson's lab instead." With a smile playing on my lips, I watched as Prof. Author Gabby's head shot up at the mention of the name, Professor Emerson from Synapse Research. I could almost see the gears turning in his head. Synapse Research was a rival lab, fiercely competing in the field of groundbreaking studies, and Professor Emerson was one of the most renowned researchers in the industry. Gabby's expression shifted, flashing with irritation and intrigue. I knew it was either Professor Gabby had a lot of applicants to choose from already, or he was probably trying to be a difficult professor. But I would agree more on the latter. I cleared my throat before continuing, trying to keep my tone as neutral as possible. "Yeah, she's been waiting to hear back about the interview. I thought maybe things were stuck." He frowned, tapping his fingers against the desk. "Lichen virus," he repeated as if testing it on his tongue. Something flickered in his eyes. "Recognition, maybe?" "I've been meaning to get to that. I'll review the backlog soon. You know, only about 2% of applicants make it, right?" "Of course," I said smoothly, standing up. "But I've got a feeling that Jasmine's in that 2%. She's got what it takes." Gabby gave a non-committal hum but didn't meet my eyes. Before I left, he stopped me. "What was her name again, Alpha?" "Jasmine." His face shifted before he mumbled under his breath. "The name sounds oddly familiar." "What's that?" I asked, and he snapped his eyes back to me. "Huh? Never mind," he said. "Have a great day ahead, Alpha." I gave him a polite nod, knowing I'd planted the seed. All I had to do now was wait, and hope Jasmine got the news she so desperately needed. Maverick. When I returned from my meeting with Professor Gabby, Jasmine had finally woken up. Dr. James assured me it was fine to take her home now, promising to send the appointment details later. After assessing her, Dr. James confirmed that while Jasmine was stable, the fetus was still at risk. He stressed the importance of extreme care moving forward. Determined to lift her spirits, I arranged for an event planner to organize lunch. I needed her to see how much I cared, especially since she hadn't eaten much since yesterday. I remembered her love for steak marinated in mango sauce. It seemed to be her favorite, so I ensured it was part of the platter, alongside other dishes she enjoyed. The car ride home was quiet until I broke the silence. I've decided to have your art pieces moved into your room. Now that you're staying here, you'll need to sort through your personal belongings before we sell the house. Her response was unexpected. Didn't you hear what Dr. James said? This contract won't work. Her words hit me like a bombshell. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, struggling to process what she just said to me. How could she be so certain of failure without even trying? How could she think it wouldn't work out if we didn't put in our best? Is she willing to give up without even giving us a try? What are you saying, Jasmine? Why do you think so? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she seemed lost in thought, with her eyes distant. Finally, she murmured, "No one should know about this." I wanted to argue, to push back against her words and tell her I didn't care about others, but Dr. James' warnings rang in my ears. So I nodded, swallowing my protests as I focused back on the road. Now is not the time, I assured myself. When we arrived, I helped her inside. Mrs. Martha, the stay-in nurse, had already arrived, welcoming and taking in our bags. "Who is she, Mav?" she asked, her tone sharp. "She'll be your nurse. She'll take care of you until you're well enough to move freely," I responded decisively. "Move freely? I'm fine. I don't need a nurse. I'm pregnant, not disabled." Jasmine's confusion quickly turned into resistance. I sighed, knowing this wasn't going to be easy. I couldn't tell her the full extent of the risk to her pregnancy without causing her more distress. Instead, I gently persuaded her. "Trust me on this. I had promised her already, and I wanted her to let me fulfill that promise." Her glare softened, but I could tell she wasn't happy. After settling her in, I excused myself to freshen up. In my room, I called Mrs. Martha in to finalize her arrangements. "Greetings, Alpha Maverick," she said, bowing respectfully as she came into the room. I nodded, acknowledging her greetings. "You're aware of why you're here, correct? Dr. James should have briefed you on it." "Yes, Alpha," she replied, her voice steady. "Good." I handed her a document. "This is a non-disclosure agreement to ensure smooth confidentiality. Sign it. But I must warn you that if you breach this contract, there will be severe consequences. Understood?" Her hands trembled slightly as she signed the papers, but she didn't hesitate. Once she was dismissed, I stepped into the shower, hoping to calm my nerves. Just as I was finishing, my phone buzzed. It was Caden. "Alpha, I've reviewed the CCTV footage," he said. "I found something strange. Samantha was in the house during the incident." "Samantha?" I frowned. "What was she doing there?" "That's the issue, Alpha. The entrance camera didn't capture what happened. The footage is missing." A wave of anger flooded through me. Samantha had to be involved in Jasmine's fall. How dare she think anyone could hurt my mate and go scot-free? She was mistaken. I thanked Kaiden for his effort and asked him to dig deeper before ending the call. I clenched my fists, suppressing my rage. Whoever had harmed Jasmine would pay dearly. And I will deal with Samantha if I find out she had a hand in it. But not now, though. I couldn't risk upsetting her. After a quick shower, I returned to Jasmine to check up on her. I also informed her of my decision to work from home starting the next day. She seemed irritated again, this time about Mrs. Martha. "I don't need someone babysitting me, Maverick," she snapped. "I can take care of myself. Being pregnant isn't a disability." She complained about how she would be bedridden in an enclosed space. I imagined just how suffocated she must have been feeling. It would be just for a few more hours. Seeing her frustration, I decided to distract her. I retrieved a wheelchair from the storeroom, which I had kept since almost forever, and suggested we explore the mansion together. Since the mansion was built, I hadn't spent much time here due to my responsibilities, and also I was away for a long time. Chaos had followed me ever since my return, but now I wanted to ensure everything was in place and give Jasmine a tour. As we explored, I explained the history behind the art and design choices. Her laughter and lightheartedness warmed my heart. It had been days since I'd seen her this happy. I took her to my favorite spot, the garden. Her wide-eyed wonder made the effort worthwhile. We even played a little game, and for a little moment, everything else didn't matter. Not the pregnancy, not the duties, not Logan, and not the responsibilities. While we were at it, the event planner texted to confirm that lunch was ready. After the last game, I wheeled her to the dining room where the aroma of food filled the air. Her eyes sparkled as she took in the spread before her. "Mav, you did all this?" I smiled. "Cheer up, Jasmine, a pregnant woman shouldn't be stressed." Her expression softened. "Words can't begin to explain how grateful I am. You've made my day." As we began eating, her phone dinged. She picked it up, her face paling before flushing red with excitement. "I can't believe this," she exclaimed, standing abruptly. "What is it?" I asked, startled. "I got invited to the final interview with Professor Gabby. It's tomorrow." I smirked, satisfied that my earlier visit had paid off. "Congratulations, Jasmine. You deserve it." Her joy was contagious, and I couldn't resist pulling her into a hug. "I'm so proud of you." She stiffened for a moment, but quickly relaxed in my arms. Reluctantly, I stepped back, knowing I couldn't trust myself to keep my emotions in check. "So what time is the interview?" I asked. "I'll check after lunch," she replied, her voice still giddy with excitement. "How are you feeling now?" "Honestly, I feel great," she said, smiling. Her mood was perfect, and I decided to ask the question that had been nagging at me. "Jasmine, did Samantha do this to you? Why would you allow her into the house in the first place?" The smile vanished from her face. The spoon in her hand clattered onto her plate as she froze. "Jasmine!" I swallowed, staring at him, the question hanging in the air. How did he know what had transpired between Samantha and me? How had he found out she was the one who pushed me? I didn't remember telling him about our meeting. In fact, we'd never spoken about her. She wasn't worth a conversation. The image of her cold eyes, leaving me there to bleed, haunted me. The more I recalled the incident, the more it frayed my nerves. I needed to teach Samantha a lesson she wouldn't soon forget for undermining me. If I told the Alpha about her threats, I was sure she would be severely punished. I cleared my throat, blinking. "Don't worry about her, Mav. She's nothing I can't handle." He stared at me for a few moments, trying to read me, to see between the lines. But I revealed nothing, only smiled reassuringly. He slumped back in his chair, letting the conversation drop, for now. "Your meal is getting cold," I said, gesturing to the half-eaten steak on his plate. "I'm full," he dismissed, making me frown. Wasting food was one of my biggest pet peeves. "Mav," I said gently, my tone warm, "finish it. Why did you serve yourself something you couldn't finish?" His lips curled into a smile, and he raised his hands in surrender. "Okay, Luna Jasmine," he teased, picking up his fork again. I shook my head with a laugh. "Luna Jasmine? Why did I like the sound of that?" It wasn't a bad idea, but I wasn't sure I was ready for such responsibilities yet. What baffled me even more was how nonchalant Mav seemed about my problems. He made me feel secure, as if I wasn't alone in facing them, and it was comforting. We resumed eating in comfortable silence, each lost in thought. Only the scraping of plates and the background noise of the television filled the room. When we finished dinner, I felt satisfied. Mav wiped his lips with a napkin. "Did you enjoy it?" "Absolutely. It was lovely," I replied. He hummed. I wanted to address another topic. Since Logan and Isabella's visit, we hadn't spoken about them. I didn't know what Mav had decided about Logan. Had he finally given in? Or was he still determined to make him fight for the position? I summoned my courage. "I was wondering," I began, drawing his attention. "What have you decided about Logan's position at Grand Prime?" He stiffened slightly, but a flash of relief crossed his face before he answered. "I'm still considering it, though I'm thinking of placing him in one of our branches." I nodded. At least Mav was considering it. That was good news. Even though he seemed stern and strict, he was one of the most sensitive people I knew, with a soft heart. He was simply good at concealing that part of himself. "My turn," he teased, offering a tight, sarcastic smile. "I never said this was a 20 questions game," I said, playfully rolling my eyes. He shrugged with a loud laugh that made my wolf stir with giddiness. "About Samantha, I heard you were good friends. What happened between you two? Why did she suddenly turn against you? Samantha was a sore subject. I didn't want to think about her betrayal. For a moment, I resisted the urge to open up to Mav, but I needed to. Being with him brought a sense of security, and I needed someone to confide in. Like you said, we used to be close, almost inseparable since college, but she allowed jealousy and insecurity to overwhelm her. It slowly transformed into hatred. She compared everything I did to herself. I overlooked it, never giving it any thought. I thought she was just looking out for me, I said, using air quotes. I laughed. But I saw it, but I refused to acknowledge it. I willingly turned a blind eye, believing what I wanted to believe, until she showed me just how vile she could be. Mav's jaw clenched as he listened. You're too good for her, Jasmine. Losing you is enough karma. The weight in my chest lifted. I felt lighter after talking to someone. Just then, Mav paused, noticing something in the background noise. He turned up the television volume. We listened to the breaking news. My eyes widened. The new strain of the lichen virus is becoming alarming, spreading rapidly. 3 pack members from the Dynamite pack have been confirmed dead, all infected with the virus. Severe precautions are advised, and minimizing movement is recommended. What? The lichen virus? Mav's eyes met mine. We need to act swiftly. There's a member in this pack infected with the lichen virus, he said, dropping the bombshell. What? I swallowed. This was a huge problem. Yes, he's under quarantine and closely monitored. We're trying to revive him, but we must keep this quiet. It will create several disadvantages and even jeopardize our businesses. We have to handle this strategically. How is he doing? I asked. Mav sighed. Well, he's still alive. I nodded. Because the virus is resisting existing drugs, we need to find something that stops its reproduction. He smiled with pride. Then Mrs. Martha entered, carrying a tray, interrupting our conversation. Greetings, she said, bowing to us. I'm here to administer Miss Jasmine's medication, she said, clearing her throat. She handed me a glass of water and the pills, encouraging me to take them. They'll be good for muscle growth. I took the pills, thanking her. She offered a kind smile. But I stopped mid-gesture, detecting a strong scent of rare seaweed mixed with the pills. Is there rare seaweed in this? I asked. It was a forbidden herb, known to be harmful to pregnant or nursing mothers. It was abused by some wolves seeking to get high, and due to its toxicity, it was outlawed by several packs. It could cause severe bleeding, and if left unchecked, lead to fetal death. Seaweed? Mav's voice boomed as he looked between me and Mrs. Martha, his expression questioning. Jasmine. Her eyes widened in surprise. Seaweed? She repeated. Mrs. Martha, I can smell it. Rare seaweed has a distinct pungent odor. She nodded, understanding dawning on her face. I'm only administering Dr. James's prescription. I wasn't given any specific information about the contents. What's happening? Is there a problem? Mav asked, his gaze shifting between us. No, everything's fine. I just need to rest, I said, offering a tight smile to both him and Mrs. Martha. As soon as she left, Mav approached me, a smile on his face. Shall we? He gestured towards the wheelchair. I sighed. I can walk back to my room, Mav. It'll be better for digestion, I protested, but he wasn't having it. Don't argue, Jasmine. Climbing the stairs is too much. Relax and let me take you to your room. I knew arguing was pointless. Mav was determined to abide by Dr. James's instructions about not straining myself and getting bed rest. I allowed him to guide me to the wheelchair and wheel me back to my room. I sank onto the bed, suddenly feeling exhausted. I wasn't sure if it was the food, but I felt incredibly sleepy. I'll leave you to rest. If you need anything, let me know, okay? Mav sat beside me, taking my hand and gently playing with my fingers. My wolf relaxed under his touch. I nodded. He pressed a lingering kiss to my forehead before tucking me securely under the duvet and leaving the room. I tossed and turned, my mind racing. Although I was tired, sleep seemed elusive. I closed my eyes but still couldn't drift off. The ringing of my phone startled me. I glanced at the screen and saw Alpha Zephyr's name flashing. I frowned. What could be the problem? Or perhaps he was simply checking on me. Hello, Jasmine. His voice came from the other end. I returned his greeting. After exchanging pleasantries, he spoke again. Long time no see. I called to see how you're doing. That's very thoughtful of you. Thank you, I said, grateful for his concern. It meant a lot to know that someone cared. "I have a feeling you've been avoiding me, Jasmine. Is something wrong?" he asked, his voice low and concerned. My heart sank. I'd been so preoccupied that I'd completely forgotten. "Not at all, Alpha Zeph. I apologize," I said defensively. He chuckled. "No worries, although you did promise to explain what happened at Grand Prime the other day." My mind flashed back to that day, and also to when I'd been stuck in the elevator while retrieving a reagent. He hadn't heard from me since. Unsure how to explain the details, I tried to downplay the situation. I simply told him I'd been there for a job interview, which had been successful, and that's why I'd been so busy. He congratulated me, though I detected a subtle change in his tone. I thought he'd probe more about why I chose Grand Prime, but he didn't. We spoke for a while longer, with him asking about my experience and my first day at work. After our conversation, he hung up. Moments later, I finally fell into a deep sleep. A soft knock came at the door. "Are you ready?" Mav's voice called from the other side. It was the next day. A mix of emotions churned within me, anxiety and confidence. I was determined to do my best and demonstrate my capabilities, proving why I deserved to be recognized by Professor Gabby. "Yes," I called out, my voice slightly shaky, smoothing down my dress. It was a comfortable sundress that fell just below my knees. I grabbed a fur coat to go with it and added a touch of blush to my cheeks. He entered, his scent filling my senses. He stood behind me, our eyes meeting in the mirror. His eyes glittered with admiration. "You're perfect, Jasmine," he whispered, more to himself than to me. Heat rose to my cheeks. I muttered a quiet thank you. He led me outside to the car. When we arrived at the lab, we went straight to Professor Gabby's office. He turned to face me, his eyes meeting mine. "You have nothing to worry about, Jas. I'll be waiting outside." I nodded and watched him leave. I took a deep breath and knocked twice before he allowed me in. "Professor Gabby," I said with a nod, extending my hand for a handshake. "Jasmine," he replied with a curt nod, then introduced me to two other stern-looking professors. "You're 2 minutes late," he said sternly, but I knew he was trying to intimidate me. "Thank you for pointing that out. I'm here now and ready to focus on what needs to be done," I replied with a polite smile, keeping my tone respectful. I was 2 minutes late, but not late for the interview itself. He nodded, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. He cleared his throat and began asking questions to test me. "Do you truly believe you can handle the pressure of research?" he asked. I offered a polite smile. "Absolutely. Pressure drives innovation, and I thrive in challenging situations." He hummed and posed another question. "How can you be certain your findings are accurate?" His tone had softened slightly. I listened intently, thinking strategically before answering. I double-checked my methodology and cross-reference with established research. I understand the importance of accuracy in our field and take it very seriously. They exchanged glances before nodding in acknowledgement. "So," one of the other professors spoke, "what if you make a mistake? The consequences could be significant." I considered the question. Mistakes are part of the learning process, but I have protocols in place to minimize risks and ensure I can correct any errors quickly. "Very well," Professor Gabby said. He moved to a drawer and pulled out an old device. "Try handling this. I believe a researcher should be able to overcome challenges, even with unfamiliar equipment." I took the device, feeling a pang of surprise. It was an outdated model, no longer in common use due to advancements in technology. As I examined it, I realized it was the same type of device my late father had taught me about. I'd watched him use it many times. Though modern equipment was now used to detect werewolf genes, this had been my father's favorite tool. The nostalgic device took me back. I explained to professors, "This is a dribble photo device invented by the dribble team of scientists. It was used for capturing genetic information." I demonstrated the opening and the insertion of a frozen cell. "This is where the hair sample goes, before being placed in a chemical solution to break down the cell membranes for accurate results. A reading below 30% indicates the presence of a wolf gene." When I finished my explanation and demonstrated the device, confirming the presence of werewolf DNA, I was met with applause. I smiled, seeing their impressed expressions. With a hopeful heart, I hoped I had successfully proven myself to Professor Gabby and would be chosen as one of his researchers. Jasmine. Well done, Jasmine. This concludes your interview. Professor Gabby extended his hand for a handshake. His words were accompanied by a warm smile. I could see the genuine satisfaction in his eyes. Thank you for having me, I replied politely, returning his handshake and then turning to acknowledge the other professors seated around the table. They offered small nods and smiles. Leaving Professor Gabby's office, I expected to find Mav waiting eagerly in the lobby, waiting to hear every detail of how the interview went. But he wasn't there. The lobby was empty, save for a few workers milling about. I went outside, scanning for his car in the parking lot, but it was also absent. I reached into my purse for my phone to call him and inquire about his whereabouts. A notification caught my eye. It was a text message from Maverick sent minutes earlier. There's an emergency I need to attend to. A driver in a green Porsche will pick you up. Good luck with your interview. You've got this. A wave of disappointment washed over me as I read the message. While I understood that emergencies happened, I couldn't help but feel a little let down. I had truly wanted to share this moment with him. I settled into the back seat of the Porsche, the plush leather cool against my skin. The interior was filled with the distinct scent of leather and a faint, familiar trace of Maverick's cologne. Another notification pinged on my phone. It was an email from the research team at Grand Prime. I opened it to find a query from work that required an immediate response. My heart sank. I knew it was my fault. I hadn't informed anyone of my absence. I imagined Violeta and my other coworkers were likely displeased. Knowing I couldn't delay, I instructed the driver to return to Grand Prime. Yes, ma'am, he replied, making a U-turn. At the reception desk, the receptionist cleared her throat. I told her I was there to collect the official query letter. She scrutinized me with a scornful look, which I ignored. As she handed me the letter, she frowned and said, "You've been absent without permission, not even informing your supervisor." She scoffed. "Do you know what that means?" I recognized her type, someone who tried to belittle others to feel superior. If given an inch, they would take a mile. "It's not your place to question me," I said in a low, firm voice. "I owe you no explanation. Now, call my supervisor and inform her I'm here. Do your job, and I'll handle mine." I finished with a tight smile, and she visibly swallowed. "Whatever," she muttered, rolling her eyes as she called Violeta. After a brief conversation, she informed me, "Miss Violeta wants to see you in her office now." I proceeded to Violeta's office and knocked twice, receiving no answer. After a 30-second pause, I knocked again, still without a response. Was she even there? I turned the doorknob and found her inside, leaning back in her chair. "I didn't give you permission to enter, did I?" she said hostilely. I wasn't in the mood for Violeta's attitude, especially after the positive experience with Professor Gabby. "I apologize," I said simply, not wanting to escalate the situation. I approached her with the query letter, ready to explain myself. I knew I was at fault and deserved to be reprimanded. "I don't want to hear anything you have to say, Jasmine. You've seen the query letter, and you know what it means," she said dismissively, avoiding eye contact. I struggled to suppress my rising anger. My tolerance for Violeta was already low after discovering her true nature. However, for the sake of my job, I tried to remain calm. "It wouldn't be fair if you didn't listen to me," I said softly. "I know I was wrong, but please, give me a chance, Violeta." She let out a sarcastic laugh. "A chance? You must be dreaming. You're suspended for disregarding my position as your superior." Suspended? This wasn't about missing work. It was about her ego. Because I had disregarded her position? How absurd. I bit back the harsh words I wanted to unleash, maintaining a professional tone. "I know I was wrong, and I apologize. I was ill and advised to stay in bed." That's not a reasonable excuse. Her callousness was astonishing. Even in her anger, the least she could have done was ask if I was all right. This confirmed how much Violeta disliked me and how little she cared about my well-being. "But," I began, only for her to slam her fist on the table. "I won't tolerate your disrespectful behavior. Just because you're the alpha's mistress or whatever, you think you own the entire pack and company? You can't provoke me and expect to get away with it, Jasmine." Mistress? How dare she demean me like that? We had addressed this before, yet she persisted. Why was she so fixated on me? I had seen her treat others with kindness, so why the animosity towards me? My wolf stirred within me, urging me to retaliate, but I resisted. I'm just a friend to the alpha, I guess, I explained again, trying to remain polite. I was growing weary of Violetta's maliciousness. Also, I had no idea what Maverick must have told her about our relationship. Friend? She scoffed. Who do you think you're fooling with your infidelity? You're so disrespectful to the department. You're nothing but a lowlife, Jasmine. Get out of my office before I lose it, she screamed. I stared at her in shock. Before I could respond, the door burst open. Violetta's eyes widened and her face paled as she stared at the intruder. I turned to see, Alpha Maverick? Violetta gasped. What's going on, Violetta? He asked, his voice eerily calm. Her body trembled as she avoided his gaze. I asked a question, Violetta. What's happening here? He repeated, looking between Violetta and me. Jasmine left her duties without informing anyone. The reagent she's been working on is wasted. 50 liters condemned, causing a loss. I was just trying to correct her, she whispered, looking at the floor. That doesn't seem to be the case, Mav boomed. I noticed his protruding veins and the trembling of his hands as he struggled to contain his anger. Violetta swallowed hard as Mav stepped closer. Jasmine is new and bound to make mistakes. That's why you're her supervisor, isn't it? You're supposed to monitor her work. A reagent doesn't spoil from being left open for 2 days. Are you saying you didn't check on it for 2 days? What have you been doing? She tried to explain, but he interrupted. The mistake is equally your fault and the others. You all saw the open reagent and didn't think to preserve it? And you blame only her? You failed as a supervisor, Violetta. Instead of finding solutions, you're here screaming at her. He shook his head in disbelief. You called her a lowlife? I'm disappointed that you spoke to her like that. It's despicable. I said I wouldn't tolerate anyone speaking down to others, regardless of their position, and you're no exception, Violetta. My gaze snapped to the alpha. His face was flushed with fury. My heart swelled with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. Mav was defending me. Violetta had been his favorite, not only because of Frank, but also because of her abilities. This was proof that Maverick wasn't at all biased. Jasmine. Violetta's eyes were downcast, her posture slumped with a mixture of shame and fear. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other, nervously twisting her fingers. Before finally summoning the courage to look up at Alpha Maverick, she took a shaky breath. Alpha, she began, her voice trembling. She attempted to apologize, to offer some semblance of an explanation for her behavior, but the damage had already been done. She couldn't turn back time, nor could she retract her hurtful words. He raised a hand to silence her. Dare you say another word, Violetta? Violetta nodded her head frantically, her eyes wide with fear, understanding the gravity of his unspoken words. She knew she had crossed a line, and the consequences would be severe. With that, Mav turned sharply and walked out of the office, leaving just Violetta and me in the tense silence. I glanced one last time at her broken frame, her shoulders slumped, her head bowed in defeat. I felt a pang of something akin to pity, but I quickly pushed it aside. Her actions had been deliberate, and she had to face the consequences. I then turned and followed Mav out of the office. Outside, I was filled with confusion, unsure of what to do next. I didn't know if I should stay at work, return to the office and try to salvage the situation, or simply leave, go home, and try to recover from the day's events. I was already feeling drained and dizzy, the stress of the interview, the confrontation with Violetta, and now this unexpected intervention by Mav taking its toll. Dr. James's words about avoiding any strain echoed in my mind, and I knew I should disregard his advice. After much contemplation, weighing the pros and cons of staying versus leaving, I finally decided to head home. Rest was what I needed most right now. I was about to leave the building, my hand on the exit door, when I bumped into someone, my purse falling to the ground with a soft thud. "Oh, I'm so sorry," I gasped, instinctively knowing I was the one not paying attention. I had been so preoccupied with my thoughts that I hadn't seen anyone approaching. My gaze fell on a pair of sleek, polished black shoes. The person knelt to pick up my purse, a bouquet of flowers in their other hand. A familiar scent wafted through the air. He chuckled as our eyes met. "Alpha Zeph?" I was surprised. What could he possibly be doing here? Perhaps a meeting? But why the flowers? "Long time no see, Jasmine," he exclaimed. I smiled awkwardly. "It's good to see you too." We exchanged brief pleasantries, a few polite inquiries about each other's well-being. Then I decided to address the elephant in the room. I asked him if he was here for a meeting. He shrugged nonchalantly. "Actually, I'm here to see you, Jasmine." "To see me? Why?" I asked, confusion evident on my face. "It's important. There's something I've been meaning to tell you," he said, coming closer. I glanced around the building, suddenly feeling self-conscious. I was aware of the many eyes that were always on me, scrutinizing my every move. Anyone who saw us in this situation would likely jump to conclusions, and the gossip would undoubtedly spread like wildfire. They would misunderstand the nature of our interaction. But again, why had Zeph come all the way to my workplace? Unease settled over me, and he must have noticed my discomfort. "There's a cafe nearby, right? I think it would be best to talk there." I nodded in relief, and he led me to the company's cafe. After we were seated, Zeph ordered 2 coffees and some blueberry pie. "Now that I have your full attention, you can't escape," Zeph said playfully, laughing. I chuckled, and he sighed. "On a serious note, why are you avoiding me, Jasmine?" His question struck a chord. I had been avoiding them. My silence prompted him to continue. "You just shut me out completely, Jasmine. If I hadn't called you, I wouldn't have known you got a job at Grand Prime." I blinked, feeling ashamed. Now that he had called me out, I felt bad. I had been going through a lot, but it wasn't fair to be so self-absorbed. "I apologize. I didn't realize it offended you," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "It's fine. I'm not offended. I care about you. I don't want anything to happen to you." The incident in the elevator worried me. I was scared, Jasmine. I didn't know what to do. "It showed how much danger you could be in," he said, sighing as if a weight had been lifted. "The elevator incident was an honest mistake, Zeph," I said, avoiding his searching gaze. He looked unconvinced but didn't press the issue. "I'm fine. I can take care of myself," I said, offering a tight smile, not wanting to sound offensive, but it was frustrating when people assumed I couldn't handle things on my own. As we talked, Francesca entered the cafe. I stiffened as her eyes landed on us, and she approached with a sinister air. Well, what do we have here?" she said, crossing her arms. "I can't believe you, Jasmine, enjoying another man's company. Did you dump Alpha Maverick? Is that why he stormed out?" "Francesca, please, not now," I said, clicking my tongue, irritation clear in my voice. "Why? Because you don't want me to expose you and your ways of seducing men and acting all innocent?" she retorted. I ignored her, taking a sip of my now lukewarm coffee. Zeph looked between us, his eyes wide with surprise. He couldn't believe what was happening. He turned to me with a questioning look, and I shrugged. Seeing I wasn't giving her the attention she wanted, Francesca stomped her foot and walked away, throwing a few more snide comments over her shoulder. "What was that about?" Zeph asked. "That's Francesca for you," I said, shaking my head and laughing, but he didn't find it amusing. "How long has this been going on? How can you not be bothered by her words?" he asked, his eyes stormy. "Don't worry about it. Nothing they do gets to me." "They?" he repeated. "This can't continue, Jasmine. Why don't you join the Red Blood Pack? Migrate to my pack. The members would welcome you. We've already talked about this before." I politely declined. "Thank you for the offer, Alpha Zeph, but I'll remain in the Gold Pack for now until I get things sorted." He slumped his shoulders in surrender. "But does Rose know about this? It seems you've been avoiding her too." I thought about Rose. I had been avoiding her intentionally. There were many things I needed to tell her, starting with my entanglement with Mav. "I'll drop by her cafe soon," I said, promising myself to talk to her about everything. I glanced at the clock, realizing I'd spent almost an hour with Zeph. I stood up, grabbing my purse. "Thank you for the treat, Zeph. I enjoyed spending time with you." He stood as well. "I'm glad. But there's one more thing, Jasmine," he said with a smile, though I detected uncertainty. He handed me the bouquet of flowers, leaving me stunned. "For you. I'd like to take you on a date." "A date?" I swallowed hard. "Jasmine." He offered a warm smile, and only then did I notice the glint in Zeph's eyes. How had I ignored the signs for so long? They'd been right in front of me the entire time. The way he looked at me I had previously attributed to simple politeness. Even with the way he spoke to me, his voice softened ever so slightly when addressing me. His kind gestures, even offering help with the smallest tasks, everything pointed to one thing, that Alpha Zeph was interested in me. Instead of outright dismissing Zeph's offer, I politely appreciated his effort. "Thank you very much, Alpha Zeph," I said, my voice sincere. "I appreciate your kind offer, Zeph, but I'm afraid I have a lot to work on right now. I'm currently under scrutiny." I explained the recent accusations briefly and the query I was getting. I can't get my head straight, not until everything falls into place. I need to rectify some situations at the office, so I wouldn't be able to honor the date. Not now, though. He nodded, shoving his hands into his pockets. Although I saw a wave of disappointment dull his eyes, he tried hard to conceal his disappointment behind a polite facade, managing a small smile, albeit a slightly strained one. "No worries, Jasmine. I understand. Another time, then?" I was about to reply, to offer a reassuring word, or perhaps suggest a future time, when my phone rang, the sharp tone cutting through the air. "Excuse me for 1 second," I said to him, gesturing at the phone. Mav's name flashed across the phone screen, and I immediately picked up. "Jasmine, where are you?" he asked with concern. I glanced around the cafe absent-mindedly. "Still at the office." "Why did you risk coming all the way to the office, especially after Dr. James's orders for bed rest and not straining yourself?" Even though he tried to maintain a calm voice, the frustration bubbling in it didn't go unnoticed by me. Zeph's eyes were fixed on me, observing my body language. I lowered my voice, almost to a whisper, feeling conscious of his presence. "Don't worry, I'm all right now. I don't feel sick at all." "All right, please go home immediately. I'll meet you there," he said, clearly displeased with my decision, but he didn't say anything else. "Got it," I replied, ending the call with a sigh. "Sorry about that," I said, turning back to Zeph and offering him an apologetic look. "Are you all right? How's your health?" he asked with genuine concern. I am certain he hadn't overheard my conversation with Mav, but when he heard me mention my health, his brow furrowed with worry. "I feel much better, Zeph," I assured him, offering a reassuring smile. "If there's anything you need help with, remember you can always count on me, okay?" He offered a warm smile, his eyes filled with sincerity. I nodded, thanking him again and excusing myself. As I sank into the car seat, I instructed the driver to take me straight home. Upon arriving, I sighed, longing for a long hot bath to soothe my tense muscles and wash away the stress of the entire day. It was hectic. As I entered the house, I froze in place as Logan stood there. He turned his eyes to me, filled with malice. "Oh well, Jasmine, you're back," he smirked, his gaze sweeping over me from head to toe. The way he stood confidently, the way he held himself, all of it filled me with unease. My heart pounded in my chest. I wouldn't deny that I was afraid of Logan's presence as the cold dread slowly crept into my bones, but I refused to show him any weakness or give him the satisfaction of seeing me cower. "What are you doing here? What do you want?" I demanded, my voice laced with irritation, attempting to mask my fear. I turned to Mrs. Martha, who was nervously toying with the hem of her blouse, her eyes wide with fear. "Martha, how could you allow a stranger into the house without permission?" I accused, not caring if my words were harsh. It was irresponsible to let anyone in without knowing their intentions, especially given the current circumstances. She stuttered, her voice trembling. "Miss Jasmine, I tried to stop him, but he wouldn't listen. He forced his way in." "Stranger?" Logan chuckled dangerously, his nostrils flaring, his eyes narrowing. "You dare call me a stranger in my uncle's house, Jasmine? Are you even listening to yourself?" he said, his voice rising in outrage. The force of his tone made both Mrs. Martha and me flinch. I turned back to her, my voice softening slightly. "Mrs. Martha, please give us some privacy, okay?" She nodded, fleeing the room without hesitation. It was clear she was terrified of Logan, and her fear only amplified my own. "Look, Logan," I said, turning back to him, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't know what you want to achieve by coming here, but Maverick isn't home. Please inform him before coming next time. I don't feel comfortable around you." He flinched a little from my harsh words, his mouth opening in shock. But I didn't have a single care in the world. "I'm not here for Uncle Maverick. I know the baby you're carrying is mine." He dropped this bombshell, and I was stunned, feeling the air in my lungs trapped. How did he know I was pregnant? Confusion and, most importantly, dread washed over me. What are you saying, Logan? I stammered, trying to deny it, even though a terrible feeling told me he knew the truth. You think I'm a fool, Jasmine? I know you're pregnant with my child. So this has been your plan all along, huh? To deceive my uncle and claim my baby? My throat went dry at his accusations. Horrified was an understatement to the cold anxiety that gripped me. But I tried to compose myself, to show him his words were meaningless and didn't have an impact on me, that he was mistaken. Pregnant? For you? I scoffed, forcing a surprised laugh, though it sounded awkward even to my own ears. That's ridiculous. Who misinformed you? You and I both know it's impossible for me to be pregnant, let alone by you. I alluded to the birth control and family planning we'd used for years, a desperate attempt to cling to logic. Logan threw his head back in laughter, a harsh, mocking sound that sent shivers down my spine. You must think I'm an idiot, Jasmine, he said. My heart hammered against my ribs, feeling like it would burst at any moment. He slowly walked toward me, like a predator stalking its prey, each step bringing him closer to me. Then, the familiar scent of mauve wafted through the air, stirring my wolf and bringing me some little relief. What the hell is happening here? Mav's voice cut through the tense atmosphere. He looked between my wide eyes and Logan's fiery ones. How dare you think you can walk into my house and talk to Jasmine like that? He demanded, but I could see how hard he tried to suppress his rage. Uncle, Logan said, trying to maintain a respectful tone. I knew that, regardless of the situation, Logan feared Mav's anger and respected him a lot. I'm tired of playing games. You both think you can deceive me. First, it was my position you stripped me of, and now my child? I won't let it happen. Not on my watch. Logan finished. Maverick's eyes widened in shock as he stiffened momentarily. What did you say? Maverick. I noticed Jasmine's discomfort when I brought up Samantha in the conversation. Although she tried to avoid discussing what had transpired that day, she simply said it was nothing she couldn't handle, and I nodded, dropping the subject. We continued eating before she dropped another bombshell, asking about my decision regarding Logan's position at the company. I sighed, unsure if my plan was a good idea. I told her I was planning to transfer him to one of our branches, though I withheld the fact that it was the most remote one. She nodded, clearly pleased that I was considering her input. After some light-hearted conversation, I turned serious again. About Samantha, I heard you were good friends. What happened between you two? Why did she suddenly turn against you? My words had a visible impact. She paused, her eyes fixed on a distant point, lost in thought. I could tell she was hesitant before finally explaining how Samantha had been blinded by jealousy and insecurity, which led to her spiteful behavior. This information made sense and confirmed that Samantha's visit hadn't been ordinary. It coincided with Jasmine's fall down the stairs. Our conversation was interrupted by a news report on the TV, drawing my attention. The report stated that a new strain of the lichen virus had killed 3 members of the dynamite pack. I was alarmed, knowing we had a patient and were working tirelessly to eradicate the disease. I explained the situation to Jasmine, also informing her about our afflicted patient. Jasmine offered insightful contributions, and I was proud of her intelligence. Mrs. Martha then entered with Jasmine's medication, only for us to discover it contained a rare seaweed. I was overcome with rage, immediately recognizing the pungent smell. How had she even obtained it? Mrs. Martha was equally confused, stating she had simply followed orders. Something about the situation didn't sit well with me. I couldn't believe Dr. James would prescribe such a thing. Unease settled in, and I promised to get to the bottom of it. There'd probably be a new study to back it up. I trusted him. After escorting Jasmine back to her room, her earlier words echoed in my mind. I called Kaiden to inquire about the task's progress. Greetings, Alpha. There's progress. I retrieved CCTV footage from the street that captured part of Jasmine's front yard. I found something. I'll send the media to you shortly, he said, getting straight to the point. Thanks, Kaiden, I replied. My pleasure, he chuckled before ending the call. I fidgeted with my phone, growing desperate for answers. Moments later, it pinged with a notification from Kaiden containing the media. I tapped the screen and froze. The footage showed Samantha and Jasmine talking from a distance. Just as Jasmine was about to lock the door, Samantha pushed her hard, causing her to stumble down the front steps. My body shook with barely contained anger. My stomach twisted seeing Jasmine's face contorted in pain. But what truly shook me was how Samantha simply left her there. Jasmine struggled, dragging herself toward her purse. I closed my eyes, steadying my breath. I couldn't watch any further. The knowledge that she was pregnant made it unbearable. I immediately contacted my private investigator, instructing him to delve into Samantha's background, her residence, her source of income, and the extent of her relationship with Jasmine. Whether Samantha knew it or not, her life was about to drastically change for the worse. If she thought she could harm my mate, my future Luna, and escape without consequence, she was sorely mistaken. I vowed she would face the consequences. The next morning was Jasmine's interview with Professor Gabby. Entering her room, I found her already dressed and looking ethereal. My heart raced. With each passing day, my feelings for Jasmine intensified. I couldn't understand how she evoked such a reaction in me. My wolf was deeply attached, yearning for her constant presence. Even when she was near, she felt so far away. After arriving at Professor Gabby's office, I wished Jasmine good luck. I believed in her. I knew she would impress the professor. Jasmine commanded attention wherever she went. I waited in the lobby when my phone pinged. It was a message from Kaiden. Another pack member was suspected of contracting the new strain of the lichen virus. My heart sank. The lichen virus outbreak was becoming alarming, and we needed a solution quickly. Although our scientists and pharmacologists were doing their best, we needed to do better. I checked the time. Jasmine was still in her interview, and I had to leave for a board meeting. I quickly texted Kaiden to arrange a chauffeur for Jasmine and sent her a separate message before heading to my car and driving to the meeting. Upon arrival, I frowned, hearing a commotion from inside the boardroom. A representative of mine from Gold Pack, Arthur, and another from the Stallion Pack were arguing. The Stallions were our partner packs in this research. I took my seat and demanded an explanation. There's still something amiss in the last report. We haven't resolved the initial problem, and we're running out of time, the Stallion Pack representative said. We're doing our best to rectify the issue. The samples must be run individually through a Viva solution, Arthur responded. Don't you think a Viva solution sometimes alters the results? It's never entirely accurate, the Stallion representative countered. He continued, where is the young woman who provided a solution last time? Murmurs rippled through the room, making my heart skip a beat. The representatives spoke amongst themselves, nodding in agreement. Another representative spoke up. She suggested using alternative approaches instead of the in vivo method. I believe she'll play a vital role in this research. She should be in charge of ensuring the issue is resolved. Violetta cleared her throat, politely interrupting. I've been in charge of all cases. I assure you my team and I will handle this efficiently, she said. But the Stallion Pack representatives were insistent. I'm sorry, but you're not who we're interested in. The woman we met at the gala, Jasmine, if I'm correct. Violetta flushed with embarrassment. My mind raced, but I remained silent, feeling torn. With the escalating virus outbreak, we needed a solution as soon as possible, and I knew Jasmine could play a significant role. However, the circumstances were complicated given her pregnancy. Although she seemed fine, I began to doubt if Dr. James truly understood the limits of her physical capabilities. I cleared my throat, dismissing the discussion. All eyes turned to me. Thank you for your input on better ways to approach the situation. I'll have everything sorted out. This concludes the meeting. But would I? What was I supposed to do? I knew Jasmine was strong-willed, and she would undoubtedly want to be involved, but I didn't want to put her in such a stressful situation. After the meeting, I stepped outside for some fresh air. The boardroom had felt suffocating. I sensed a presence beside me, Violetta's familiar scent. Alpha, what do you think about the Stallion Pack's demand? She asked, her tone curious. I sighed, unsure how to answer. She clicked her tongue before speaking again, this time with a noticeable hostility. Why are they so insistent that Jasmine coordinate this research? What does she even have to offer? I mean, she's just a low-ranking staff member, she said, her face twisted in disgust, unable to hide her jealousy. Her statement triggered me. Already in a foul mood, I didn't care if I snapped at her rudely. I couldn't tolerate anyone downplaying Jasmine, regardless of who that said person was. Low-ranking staff? This low-ranking staff you speak of saved our ass when no one else could. She stepped in for you during your lowest moment. I won't tolerate you ever dismissing her efforts. Do you understand? I barked. Yes, Alpha, she stammered, swallowing hard. I could see the animosity clearly written on her face. I had never seen this side of Violetta. She had always seemed reserved and composed. This outburst reminded me of Jasmine's question, which I found absurd. Do you trust Violetta? How much do you really know her? Could this be the reason for her question? Had she seen this bitter side of Violetta? Violetta excused herself and walked away as I stared at her retreating figure, asking myself the same question. Do I really know Violetta? Alpha Maverick. I walked back to my office, but Violetta's harsh words kept replaying in my head. I felt a tightness in my chest like I couldn't breathe. My tie felt like it was choking me, so I loosened it. I was furious, not just from Violetta's words, but also from the pressing issue of the lichen virus. I dialed my phone to call Kaiden and check on the progress of the situation, as he had been delaying in submitting the reports. On the second ring, he picked up. Greetings, Alpha. Yes, Kaiden, the reports. Why are they late? I said directly. My apologies, Alpha. We encountered a setback, but the parasite carrying the lichen virus gradually shuts down the organs, leaving the patient in a vegetative state. The victim has stopped speaking and responding to external stimuli. I sighed, pressing my temple. This was an alarming sign of deterioration. Although we are trying our best, nothing seems to be working. I understand the patient's status, and something needs to be done. What's the issue you mentioned? I pressed. Kaiden paused before shuffling. We've run into a complication, Alpha. One of the scouts caught sight of someone suspicious. We think it might be a rogue from the rival pack spying on us. A rogue? Spying on us? It was already risky trying to keep the lichen virus patient's condition secret. This intrusion suggested someone either had inside information or harbored strong suspicions. Dig deeper into it and keep the information discreet. I will assign someone else to handle the report, I said to him sharply. After the call, my mind drifted back to the earlier incident with Violetta. How could she talk about Jasmine like that, calling her low-rank staff? I knew that even though Jasmine was incredibly talented and capable, her official position in the company was lower than it should be. This unfairness had always bothered me. Jasmine was one of the hardest working people I knew. Everyone recognized her talent and dedication. Even the top researchers on the board had praised her work. It was a complete mystery to me why she hadn't been promoted to a higher position. It was a clear sign that something was wrong somewhere that needed to be fixed. What made me even more upset was Violetta's role in all of this. As Jasmine's supervisor, Violetta was supposed to be there to support, guide, and help her advance in her career in every way. Instead, she had been dismissive of her efforts. Her words dripped with arrogance. The situation was even more delicate because Jasmine was pregnant. This made me even more protective of her. I felt the need to shield her from any unnecessary stress, just like Dr. James said. Not just the unborn child, but her health was my top priority. I wouldn't be able to forgive myself if anything happened to them. I knew I had to do anything to make her work easier. I sat down at the desk, glancing one more time at the weekly report, but my mind was far away from it. I couldn't fully concentrate, focusing on the injustice Jasmine had been facing ever since she stepped foot in Grand Prime. I knew that the current research project, the one about the lichen virus, would be much more successful if Jasmine was more involved. Her deep understanding of this specific disease was invaluable. I sighed for the umpteenth time, knowing I needed to do something quick to improve Jasmine's situation. It was time I considered giving her a higher position, at least temporarily, by making her a higher-level researcher for this project. It was the least I could do to show her that we recognize her hard work and talent in the company. I needed to complete my own analysis of the situation before discussing it with Jasmine. While I had carefully weighed the pros and cons, I was still unsure of the right course of action. Should I let her proceed as the board wishes and supervise the project, or intervene and insist on bed rest? I knew it wasn't my decision to make, but I couldn't help feeling responsible. Closing the files, I grabbed my coat, wanting to speak with Violeta. I needed to confirm that the first draft of paper reports for the department's most recent research was ready. I wanted to request a copy before leaving the office. As I approached Violeta's office, I stopped short, hearing a commotion from within. I was surprised to hear Violeta's voice, laced with anger and contempt. "Who do you think you are fooling with your infidelity? You're a disgrace to the department. You're nothing but a lowlife, Jasmine. Get out of my office before I lose it." Jasmine? Was Jasmine there? Even if she was, how could Violeta speak to her in such a demeaning way? Yes, Violeta was her supervisor, but that was no justification for such abusive language. "What's going on?" I burst into the office, unable to bear another second of this. Violeta looked shocked to see me. My gaze fell on Jasmine, whose eyes were downcast. My heart ached at her vulnerability, but I was also filled with anger. Most importantly, I was frustrated that Jasmine had disregarded my advice. I had warned her not to overexert herself and to reduce her workload, but she hadn't listened. "Alpha Maverick," Violeta stammered. I demanded an explanation. Upon seeing me, Violeta attempted to deny what had happened, but I had heard everything clearly. There was no point in trying to hide the truth. Violeta claimed that Jasmine's incompetence had led to the spoilage of some regents, resulting in a loss. But I knew this wasn't true. It wasn't just Jasmine's fault. It was everyone's fault, especially Violeta's, because she was in charge of the lab. It was her job to make sure everything was done correctly and that the chemicals were stored properly. Chemicals don't just spoil unless they are left open or handled carelessly. This meant that someone had been negligent. It was unfair how they had been treating Jasmine ever since she started working at Grand Prime. They constantly disrespected her and ignored her hard work. Calling her a lowlife was incredibly hurtful and unfair. Jasmine was also dealing with the challenges of pregnancy. No matter what the situation was, Violeta had no right to use such hurtful and degrading language. This kind of stress was bad for Jasmine and her baby. Violeta knew how close Jasmine and I were. Why couldn't she at least be polite to her? Was she deliberately trying to make things difficult for her? She started to apologize, but her apology only made me angrier. I didn't want to hear it. "Dare you say another word, Violeta?" She nodded frantically, fear evident in her eyes. I couldn't bring myself to finish the sentence. I didn't want to. I turned sharply and left the room, forgetting what I had originally come for. I needed to control my rage. My wolf was also enraged at anyone causing distress to our mate. Staying there any longer would be risky, giving him more control. He fed on my anger. I went back to my office to try and calm myself down before I left for the day. Then there was a soft knock on the door. "Come in," I said quietly. The door opened, and it was Violeta. I looked away from her. She sighed. "Alpha, I want to apologize. I'm doing this for Grand Prime." I just made a noise in response. She continued, her voice breaking a little. "I didn't mean it like that. I swear. I had to be strict because I didn't want the other staff to think I was letting her get away with things just because she's your friend. I always get upset when a staff member misses work without permission." I looked at her face. I could see how tired and stressed she was. She looked sad and upset. I didn't want things to be like this. I had promised Frank that I would take care of her. Tears brimmed at the side of her eyes, threatening to spill at any moment. Alarmed, I stood up abruptly, guiding her to the chair. "Please sit down, Violeta. You're pregnant. You shouldn't stress yourself, okay?" She shook her head stubbornly, sniffing hard. "No, Alpha. I'm fully aware of my responsibilities as the supervisor. I'm just trying to help your reign and ensure the staff are performing well, even if I have to be the bad guy. But if you think I'm being too extreme or not doing my job properly, I can step down and let someone more lenient take over." I had never thought about it from her point of view. I realized that I had been too quick to judge her. She was dealing with a lot of pressure, both from her job and her pregnancy. She must be feeling very overwhelmed. I put a reassuring hand on her shoulder. It was like a dam had broken. She started to cry. "No one understands me," she sobbed. "Frank was the only one who understood me. Oh, how I miss him. If he were here, he would know that I'm trying my best to serve you. He would explain everything to you. My heart sank as I watched her cry. It's not that bad, Violeta, I said softly. I'm just saying that you could have handled the situation with Jasmine in a better way. Alpha Maverick. Violeta, visibly distressed, dabbed at her teary eyes. My maternity leave will start in a few months. I only want to ensure I've set the groundwork before I go, so please don't be offended, she said in a sadly resigned tone. The more she spoke, the more my heart ached because, truthfully, Violeta had been working as hard as she should have. I would commend her for that. She had always been a dedicated and valuable asset to the research efforts at Grand Prime, possessing a sharp intellect and commitment. She was still bandaged from her accident, and even though the doctor emphasized to me that she was in a state of shock and that now was the best time to give her attention and emotional support, I had let my anger sway me a bit, overshadowing his advice, and now I regret it a little. It's fine, Violeta. I must have misunderstood your actions. However, be mindful of how you use your wording in the future. You don't know how negatively it will impact someone, I said. She nodded with understanding. Thank you, Alpha. I will adhere to that. She offered a smile, but I was certain it wasn't a genuine one, and it didn't quite reach her eyes. I ignored it. Maybe she was stressed. Also, I need the report for the titrations. Have it delivered to my home, I requested, because that had been my initial reason for visiting her office before I'd overheard the commotion. On it, Alpha, she said, turning on her heels and exiting the room. I was still worried about Jasmine, though. Where was she? How was she feeling? I needed to confirm she was okay, so I dialed her number and called her. Her voice came from the other side, instantly calming my nerves. Jasmine had a unique way of affecting me. She possessed a certain influence. It was as though she knew exactly how to reach me, to bypass my defenses. With her, I didn't feel the constant pressure to maintain the stoic facade of the Alpha. I could simply be myself, and I cherished that freedom. She was my sanctuary, my escape from the demands of my position. I asked why she had come to the office when I had clearly asked her to remain at home, as per my orders. She said she was still at the office, although she was whispering as if she had company. I wanted to ask her if she was alone, but decided against it. I didn't want to come off as too demanding or even nosy. Although I can't help it at times, her problems automatically became mine, including her well-being. I asked her to go home with my chauffeur. I will be joining her soon. I needed to make a quick stop at the orphanage to see how the children were doing and if everything was in good condition. I was committed to providing the kids with a very conducive environment in which to grow, one filled with love and care. After losing my parents at a young age, I knew how it felt, so I sometimes went there to find closure. One day I would bring Jasmine along. The thought of her in the midst of them brought a smile to my face. Just as I was about to get into my car, I noticed a very familiar figure, Alpha Zephyr. What was he doing here in Grand Prime? We hadn't arranged any meetings with him. Was he here for another proposal? I approached him, and we exchanged polite pleasantries. I asked him if anything was wrong, and he quickly dismissed it, saying he was there to see a friend. However, the friend he spoke of seemed suspicious, given the red blush that graced his cheeks and the slight hesitation in his voice that suggested otherwise. There was definitely more to his visit than he was letting on. My housewarming party is coming up tonight, he announced, and I'd like to extend a special invitation. The official invitations should be on their way to your home already. Congratulations, I replied, shaking his hand. He explained that he has moved to Second Point Estate. The estate signified an upgrade in class, automatically tagging you as elite. It was a clear demonstration of his rising status and influence. Impressive. After my conversation with Zephyr, I wasted no time heading to the orphanage. I couldn't wait to get home and freshen up. More like, I couldn't wait to finally be with Jasmine. I became more attached to her every day, and it was becoming unbearable. Alpha! The children swarmed me, their enthusiastic greetings leaving me little breathing room as I returned their hugs. My heart swelled with affection for these precious children. I had brought them treats, and they eagerly shared stories of their day and their latest accomplishments. The air was filled with their laughter and excitement, a welcome respite from the complexities of my life. Alpha, I can now ride a bicycle, one exclaimed, beaming with pride. Alpha, this, Alpha, that. Their voices blended into a joyful chorus. Theo, a shy kid, walked up to me slowly, handing me something on a piece of paper. I took it, thanking him and ruffling his hair. He retreated shyly as I unfolded the paper. A chuckle escaped my lips. It was a drawing, done with colored pencils and what looked like scraps of paper glued on. "Is this me?" I asked, gesturing to the drawing of a tall figure with comically broad shoulders surrounded by children. He had drawn children around me, and then a long figure with funny shoulders, identifying it as me. It was a simple drawing, but it captured the warmth and connection I felt with these children. "I love it so much. Thanks, Theo," I said, carefully tucking the drawing into my back pocket. It was a treasure I would keep. "There's someone I would like you all to meet. I will come with her during my next visit." "Her? Is she your wife?" inquisitive Theo questioned. "A friend, someone special." "We can't wait to see her then," they chorused with glee. After spending some time with them, sharing stories and laughter, I headed straight home. A familiar scent wafted from outside, leading me to the house. It was Logan's. What was he doing here? A knot of unease tightened in my stomach. "You think I'm a fool, Jasmine? I know you're pregnant with my child." My ears buzzed, tuning out the remaining words he said. How dare he? I was confused, a chilling dread creeping into my bones. How did he know about the child? Did Jasmine? "That's ridiculous. Who misinformed you?" "You and I both know it is impossible for me to be pregnant, let alone by you," she countered. Jasmine was smart enough to deny it. No matter how Logan got the information, we had to ensure it didn't gain traction. But how had the information leaked, even with how careful we had been? "What the hell is happening here?" I boomed. "How dare you think you can come into my house and talk to Jasmine like that?" Logan responded respectfully, at least outwardly, though I could see a storm brewing in his eyes. His jaw was clenched and his fists were tight at his sides. "Not on my watch," he stated. His tone was final. I was taken aback. Is Logan defying me? It was unexpected, almost like a challenge to my authority that I didn't anticipate. He was either incredibly certain of his claims, or he had developed a newfound sense of embodiment. Either way, both possibilities unsettled me. "Jasmine." I tried to shrug it off, to mask the surprise that threatened to blow off my cover and play it cool. This was the moment Logan would scrutinize me, dissecting my every expression, trying to read between the lines and search for any ounce of truth. Where he'd gotten this information shouldn't be a bother to me. I needed to stand firm, to prove that I was not pregnant. "Logan, I know the depths of your manipulative nature," I stated, my voice laced with a mixture of disbelief and accusation. "Is this another one of your twisted ploys to reel me back into your life? To fabricate a pregnancy? To claim I'm carrying your child? Absolutely not." Logan blinked rapidly, his face a mask of feigned uncertainty. "Jasmine, stop pretending like you don't know what I'm talking about. I can see right through your cunning games. Once bitten, twice shy." A harsh, sarcastic laugh escaped my lips as I shook my head in disbelief. "Newsflash, Logan. Even if, by some impossible twist of fate, I were pregnant, it wouldn't be yours. You sound utterly ridiculous, especially considering you know I have an IUD. You can't manipulate me into returning to you. I will dictate the course of my own life. Remember, we are no longer married. Whether I'm pregnant or not is unequivocally none of your business, okay?" He looked taken aback by my bluntness, his jaw clenching, his hands forming fists as he struggled to control his rage. "You can't fool me, Jasmine. Not again. I have proof that you're pregnant. Do you think you can toy with my emotions? Watch and see, Jasmine. I'll expose you for the two-faced liar you are. The world will know your true nature." Was he even listening to the words coming out of his own mouth? Logan, of all people, daring to question my character? The sheer hypocrisy was breathtaking. "Don't you hear how absurd you sound?" I retorted, my voice laced with scorn. "This is coming from a man who is not only a serial cheater but a chronic liar, someone who attempted to buy me off with underhanded tactics. For once, Logan, try to be original. You're capable of better, or at least you used to be." I was beyond agitated. It had been a long time since my wolf had felt this surge of rage, but today she paced restlessly, teetering on the edge. I couldn't understand it. I had moved on, severed all ties with Logan and everything associated with him. Yet he seemed determined to torment me, to inject chaos into my life. "That's enough," Maverick declared, his voice laced with anger. We both snapped our heads toward him. He was visibly enraged. "You can leave, Logan. You've overstepped the line and said more than enough." But Logan stepped forward, adopting a challenging stance. I was dumbfounded. What had given him this sudden surge of confidence? The Logan I knew couldn't even maintain eye contact with Maverick, yet here he was, squaring his shoulders, ready to confront him. "I knew this woman before you, Uncle Mav," Logan said, "and I'm telling you she's not worth fighting for. Reject her and save your reputation." He shot me a venomous glare before continuing, his tone shifting to one of wounded betrayal. "I don't mean to disrespect you, Uncle Mav, but your loyalty to our bloodline is questionable. I held you in such high esteem, placing you above everyone else, but you consistently demonstrate that you don't deserve such admiration. It's incomprehensible to me that you would remove me from my rightful position for the sake of a woman. And now she's attempting to trap you with this pregnancy. I deserve better than this, Uncle." Alpha Maverick simply smirked, a flicker of amusement dancing in his eyes. Instead of being offended by Logan's audacious accusations, he seemed to find the situation almost comical, the transformation of the once timid Logan into this defiant figure. Logan turned to leave, but as he reached the door, he paused, turning back to face us. "I demand the restoration of my house and my position at the company," he said, his voice hard. "And some friendly advice for you, Jasmine. Pregnancy reveals itself eventually. It's not a secret you can keep forever. You'd be wise to come out clean now so we can resolve this without affecting the pack's stability." What was truly happening here? Why had Logan undergone such a dramatic shift in personality? This wasn't the same man who had groveled at my feet, begging for forgiveness. Was he being manipulated by Samantha? I couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that he was attempting to forge a new path for himself by settling for something less, now that he had accepted the impossibility of winning me back. "I have nothing further to discuss with you, Logan, other than to say you're living in a fantasy world. Now leave," I commanded, gesturing sharply toward the door. There was no point in prolonging this nonsense. His hand lingered on the doorknob before he let out a harsh laugh. "I will be the one to shatter your delusions, Jasmine," he said, his voice laced with a chilling promise. "I won't rest until I obtain what I desire, and I will return with undeniable proof that you are carrying my child." My knees felt weak, and a wave of exhaustion washed over me. I longed to sink into the nearest chair. I felt utterly overwhelmed. First Violetta's accusation, and now this. Maverick placed a reassuring hand on my back, offering silent support. "Calm down, Jasmine. Don't let him provoke you." I turned to face him, my expression a mixture of confusion and concern. "I thought you trusted Dr. James implicitly. How could Logan have possibly obtained this information about a pregnancy?" His gaze was distant, his face etched with a deep frown. "I'm as baffled as you are. But one thing is certain, Jasmine," he said, his voice firm with resolve. "I will uncover the truth behind this."